What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to EP09. So we're going to start this one off with an update from James Hollingshead. James is checking in here at about 9 weeks out of the Arnold Classic Ohio, and clearly switching over to working with Milos Sarcev is really working well for James. He's always been in complete control of his own training in particular. James doesn't need anyone to handle his training program, but the goal for James was to find a prep coach to really bring him into the show. He did try coaching himself for the 2022 Olympia with some help from a friend, and I actually think they did a pretty respectable job, although his placing did not reflect that. He actually finished in 16th that year, but James knew what he needed to do, and now that he's really getting that help, he looked to be very close to realizing his full potential. I think Milos is trying to get James ready for the show well in advance so that he can really just play around with some of the variables, you know? He wants to have him at his absolute leanest maybe a few weeks out from the show so that they can kind of experiment with the carb and water manipulation process. Really try and learn as much as possible when James is at his leanest point. But it does look like we have a winning team here, and the bodybuilding world is going to be very excited for this one. I guarantee it. Alright, next up, Regan Grimes dropped a physique update where he's back into the 300 pound club, but this is a very respectable, very lean 300 pounds for Regan, relatively speaking. You guys might remember when he first hit 300 pounds, it was impressive but just not as lean as what we're seeing here. But this really shows his potential again, and we did catch a glimpse of Regan's potential in 2023. I think more than we really ever have in the past. He hit the stage much bigger than we've seen before, which he did need that size factor, but now more so for Regan, I think he needs that refinement. Not to say that a few more pounds wouldn't hurt. Proportionally, though, I do think he's doing well. Just more overall size would really work well for him. But now, the fans want to see that really hard, grainy conditioning from Regan. That's the next door that him and Milos really need to unlock to really achieve that ultimate version of his physique. We finally saw Regan crack that top 10 at the Olympia, and that really upped his stock in the game. But honestly, if he can just add a few more overall pounds of stage weight and come in peak to perfection, he'll show up undeniable. And that is how you crack the top 6, especially after what we witnessed at the 2023 Olympia in terms of conditioning from the first call-out, with all due respect to the competitors, of course. There's no show announcement from Regan as of yet, so for now, we'll just keep watching for the off-season improvements. Alright, next up, Hassan Mostafa dropped an update where he hits a full round of the mandatory poses, and I think this is a recent update, really based on just how he's looking in some of his other posts, and given the fact that he's had a recent hair transplant. But man, even if this is not all that recent, you just can't help but think, what if Hassan finally comes in absolutely peeled out of his mind in 2024? I mean, he would be virtually unstoppable on any pro stage in the world. But honestly, it's the same story for Hassan over and over again. Conditioning. He just hasn't brought it yet. He's worked with AJ Sims. He's worked with Chad Nichols. He's worked with Chris Aceto. None of these guys seem to be able to peak him to perfection. AJ Sims was probably the closest one to really get him peeled, but man, it's like an itch that you just can't scratch. We want to see this guy come in at his 100% best, because he too has the potential to crack that top 10 at the Olympia. He's one of the biggest mass monsters out there. Now, of course, he does fall a little bit short in terms of structure, but the mass monsters, I think, are making a serious comeback in 2024. And Hassan Mostafa has the perfect opportunity to capitalize on that, if he can bring that shred factor. Alright, so last up, Big Ramy is well on his way back to mass monster status. In fact, I would say that we're seeing the full-blown version of Big Ramy that we've seen in the past. Now, I don't know if it's the rest that he's been taking, if it's the stem cell treatments, maybe it was the pressure from the bodybuilding world that was taken off him, but this is the Big Ramy that was a 2-time Mr. Olympia. This is the Big Ramy that could make another run at that Olympia title. Make no mistake. Now, of course, we do need to see more before we can say that for sure. We need to see the legs, we need to see the back. But the triceps, from what we can see here, do look to have reclaimed some of their former glory. And presumably, this is not Big Ramy pushing a hard diet or supplementation at this point. So this is the most that we've seen from Big Ramy in almost a year, actually. So the question now is he gearing up for a comeback? Where would we see Big Ramy compete again? Could we possibly see him compete outside of the Olympia or the Arnold Classic? Should he compete outside of those biggest shows in bodybuilding? You guys let me know in the comments below, but I'm definitely encouraged by these recent updates. Anyway, that's it for me in this video, you guys. Thank you for tuning in to EP09. Be sure to like and subscribe.